everyone. Ian, are we live yet? Are we live to the public?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay. We have everybody ever show up?
We're waiting for Mark to
Mark, okay. So I'm going to read all these announcements, then we'll do the pledge.
Okay.
There we go. Oh, I got 1 more minute. Thank you, everyone, for being here virtually. There we go. Okay.
So
Rob,
Rob, I have 9 comments to read tonight
okay.
from the public. And I'll be reading them after the report section, I believe.
Let's see. After the reports. Okay, yeah, public comment. Okay.
After the reports, because yes.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. All right, so announcement, Executive Order N-29-28 teleconference flexibility 1.1. This meeting is being held pursuant to the procedures established in Executive Order N-29-20 issued by California Governor Gavin Newsom on March 17, 2020. All board members may attend the meeting by teleconference. This meeting will be a virtual meeting only. The public may observe and address the meeting via the instructions in item 2.1. Announcement 2, public access to the Ackerman Charter School Board of Trustees meeting. 2.1, the public will have access to the Ackerman Charter School Board of Trustees meeting via https://bit.ly/Bowman Live. For those individuals who wish to make a public comment, please do so by completing the form here prior to 6:45 p.m. https://bit.ly/ACSD public comments. A moderator for the meeting will read your comments for the record. Announcement 3, should this board meeting encounter any security breach or inappropriate issues, the meeting will be ended immediately. 3.1, the Ackerman Charter School Board of Trustees has taken measures to set restrictions and security features to protect meeting participants from inappropriate content or remarks. In the event the meeting is breached, the meeting will end immediately. The board values and welcomes civil and concise communications that inform its deliberations, mission, and vision. Individuals addressing the board are asked to be respectful and avoid remarks that reflect adversely on the character or motives of any person or his or her race, religion, gender, political views, or economic status. Profanity will not be permitted. Speakers heard on a particular subject from a previous meeting will be heard after all new speakers have addressed the board, if time remains. Members of the audience who wish to address the board on items on or not on the agenda will need to complete the Google form before 6:45 p.m. The board should hear comments from the audience prior to the formal discussion by board members of the agenda topic under consideration. Formal discussion is the board's time to discuss and is uninterrupted. For non-agenda items, regular scheduled meetings of the board shall provide an opportunity for public comment on items not listed on the agenda under public comment. Per the Brown Act, public comment is an opportunity for the Board of Trustees to listen to district constituents. The board may not respond to comments or answer questions during the public comment time. The board may, at its discretion, refer items to the administration for follow-up or place topics on a future board agenda. General guidelines, board president will call your name at the appropriate time for your comments. There's no podium, but there is, please go there, address the board. Each individual will have 3 minutes, 6 minutes if a translator is required. Total time for public comment may be limited to 20 minutes pursuant to Brown Act, Government Code, Section 54954.3A, Board Bylaw 9323. And we will continue with the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, you got to report out a closed session, Rob.
To report out first?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Nothing to report out of closed session. Now we will go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now I have a roll call vote. Michael Bellis,
Here.
Mark Hallberg,
Here.
Justin Rednall,
Here.
David Slane,
Here.
and Rob Congies are here. Okay. 5.0 Annual Organizational Election and Swearing in of Officers. Due to the meeting being held virtually, 3 members of the board were sworn in earlier today. Mr. Graham's office, in accordance with the California Education Code. So
those 3 members were Mr. Slane, Mr. Rednall, and Mr. Hallberg.
welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then let's see, we have to elect the board president and the board clerk. So Justin.
Yes.
I'd like to put Justin's name forward again as the board clerk.
I'm fine with the clerk. That's fine.
Okay.
I can't be president, Rob.
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm going to be traveling too much, hopefully, for work. So I'll be doing a lot of remote.
Okay.
And then, Rob, would you continue as the president? Since
Yeah, I think
you
my
won't
Mr.
be here
Bell-
at the job?
I think you're muted, maybe, Michael.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Just trying to figure out who wants to be the district voting rep. As far as I know, it's usually one evening a year, right before the little dinner that the county puts on.
Yes.
It's already happened this year, so it wouldn't be till next November.
There you go. I think Dave was hinting at volunteering for that one.
I'm fine. I'm fine in that
Okay,
position.
so I'm going to make a long-winded motion here to take care of this whole thing. I move that we elect Rob Congies as board president, Justin Rednall as clerk. We affirm the superintendent as the executive secretary, establish and keep the meeting dates as the second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. and a study session scheduled for the fourth Wednesday of the month at 5:30 p.m. if needed. And then nominate David Slane as the district voting representative for the board.
And I will second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Bellis and a second by Mr. Rednall. Roll call vote. Michael Bellis,
Aye.
Mark Hallberg,
Aye.
Justin Rednall,
Aye.
David Slane,
Aye.
and Rob Congies are aye. Okay. And moving on then to, excuse me, we're at item 6.0, general public comment for items on closed session. I don't believe we have any. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda, Julia? I think all of them are.
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a presentation?
No.
I don't believe we do. Okay. Consent agenda then.
So we just have the approval of November's board minutes as well as approval of warrants for November.
Right.
Yeah, I have no question on the warrants myself. I usually do, but not this time. So if no other ones, I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Seconded by David Slane.
All right, I got a motion by Mr. Bellis, second by Mr. Slane. Roll call, Michael Bellis,
Aye.
Mark Hallberg,
Aye.
Justin Rednall,
Aye.
David Slane,
Aye.
Rob Congeezer, aye. Okay. Moving then on to correspondence. We have a letter from the PCOE.
So this letter approves our learning continuity and attendance plan, and all credit for that goes out to Mrs. Wells for taking care of that for us. Another one of those arduous compliance processes that the state of California thinks is so important for us to do. And so she got that done, and we're approved through the county. We have a thank you letter to the Frink family because they gave a direct monetary donation to the school, and a thank you letter to the Assistance League. They're helping us with backpacks for our underprivileged students.
Very nice. Okay, so then technology report.
Yes, hi, good evening. So, keeping it brief, the technology report mostly consists of just some regular campus updates. Those include having our network switches almost finished being installed. About 5 of the 6 have already been installed. The last one is going to be installed over winter break, along with our new router firewall. And good news, we got our E-rate funding commitment letter over Thanksgiving break, so we can go ahead and start purchasing the wireless access points after the new year, and then hopefully install them over February break. We also were able to purchase a new Synology server. This is a multi-use server that is going to be our primary backup as well as data hosting. That is installed, up and running, and working beautifully. And it also has a secondary link to another server here on campus that's in a separate area, so that if there's any sort of fire or disaster that affects that area of campus, the data is still safe because it's all the way across to the other side. Just a quick distance learning technology update. Using CARES money, we have purchased quite a bit for our classrooms. Couple of new things that are going to be brought to the teachers this week include new classroom cameras that are called Poly Studios. Kelly will be able to talk more about them, but they're actually really, really cool. I think the teachers are really going to like them. And then we purchased new Chromebooks for each of the teachers. These are going to be better quality and more functionality than what they've been used to. Just kind of hitting on the little bumps in the road that we've been experiencing with some of our internet. The switches so far have been providing a lot of relief to our on-campus issues. The major problems still exist, though, and I believe that the primary area that those exist is the at-home networks. And honestly, between on-campus to the students at home, that data traverses hundreds, if not thousands, of miles through different internet backbones and servers and data centers, and so pretty much any one of those links can be a weak link, so to speak. And so it's really difficult to try to identify exactly where the problems exist, but it typically is that quote unquote last mile that we have the most issues. So, we're doing our best to upgrade our on-campus network to provide reliable service, but there's very little we can do on that last mile going to the house or to the students' homes. And then just to summarize our help desk, through the months of October and November, we've had 204 help tickets created. That is in comparison to this time last year, which was only 94. So again, we're seeing about twice the volume. We have a running total of 745 tickets from the beginning of the school year to the end of November. And that eclipses the entire volume of tickets that we saw last year at 648. And so it's just about 100 over what we saw for the entire 12-month span last year. So, I give a lot of credit to Louis Uribe, our technician. He helps significantly. He's been unfortunately out for the last week or so, but without his help, it would have been significantly harder to keep up with those. And we're doing our best. Certainly, we do have a lot of tickets that still need addressing, but hopefully over the break and in January, we'll be able to catch up. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Ian, just real quick, are those poly cameras? Was that through COVID?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so you'll hear about the CARES money in Ann's financial first interim report tonight in the budget. The Chromebooks and the Polycams were bought with the purchase with the CARES money given to us by the federal government that needed to be spent by the 31st of this month. So it's kind of use it or lose it. And luckily we had money left over to do this purchase, which I think, like Ian said, I think teachers are going to be really excited about. I think parents are too once they hear how we're going to use them.
Nice. Okay, cafeteria report.
Board trustees, the cafeteria report and the kids club report, I think that the two main things in both those reports, if you look at them, is there's not a lot of income, and due to COVID, we're offering grab and go lunches, but not a lot of kids buy them. We offer breakfast, a lot of kids buy them. We don't have very many kids other than essential workers kids in kids club, so there's not a lot of income coming into those. And we'll talk a little bit about this in the interim report, but just want to make you aware we still have to pay our employees. It's required by the state, if you recall, that they said you could not lay off transportation, food workers, or custodians when the COVID hit. So all their salaries are coming out of those two funds. So luckily there was some cushion in those funds. We had, some fiscal conservative as far as spending, and we're living on those savings in those two accounts. So that's the main thing. I think everybody needs to understand how those funds are not growing right now. They're actually shrinking quickly.
Yeah.
And you'll see those in Ann's report.
A teacher is by definition an essential worker. So the teacher's kids are free, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have
no, not necessarily, but they could be.
They could be. Okay.
They would be free for kids club, not
Right.
early lunch. Yes. Right. I see. I was trying to see what you meant. Thanks, David.
Yep.
Okay. Then we have the BATA report.
Good evening, Bowman School Board trustees, administration staff, and members of the community. A little later this evening, during public comments, you will hear from the BATA CTA Board of Directors member Mike Patterson. We very much appreciate Mr. Patterson reaching out to you on the BATA's behalf and sharing with you CTA's position on the safe reopening of schools during the pandemic. That being said, the BATA and the district have been working tirelessly to ensure the safety of our students, staff, and community while trying to continue providing meaningful education to the Bowman students. This has not been an easy task. Tonight, you will receive both the MOU Part 2 for the hybrid instruction, which is our current model, as well as an addendum which details an updated plan for the in-person live streaming model. The BATA and the district have worked collaboratively to formulate these plans, and it is our sincere hope that you ratify both of these items this evening. As always, if you have any questions or would like any additional information, please do not hesitate to contact us. Respectfully, Kane Sussman, BATA President, Donna Lavalore, BATA Vice President.
Thank you very much. And PTO minutes. Via Zoom. Everything's via Zoom. So how was the butter braid? How did that do? I'm very curious because I never got one, but
I think it did okay, Rob. I don't know the exact sales figures, but
I said right, sorry, 4104 surpasses prior years, so very nice.
okay.
Thank you. If anybody has a butter braid they want to get rid of, give me a call. Those things are good. All right, Bowman Education Foundation.
I don't think they had a meeting.
Yeah, I don't see anything here. So, all right, and moving on to attendance. And it's looking.
Our enrollment report,
Yeah.
right? So you can see we're slowly dropping a little bit, trying to hold steady. But it is what it is, I mean, it's happening across the country. So I think we're doing better than most proportionally of holding on to our families. But we have lost about 20 to 25, somewhere in there. Now, whether or not they come back, we don't know. We hope so.
Right.
But they've gone to, private schools or to a homeschooling option or something like that.
Okay. Do we have a superintendent report?
Yeah, we do. It's not printed. It's just a verbal report. I think it's important that I give the trustees kind of a report on COVID and how it's impacted Bowman to this point. So to this point of the year, we've had 7 total cases of students that we know of, students or staff that have contracted COVID. 4 students, 3 staff. The 3 staff are all classified staff. The 4 students all contracted COVID from a parent or a sibling, and the 3 staff, classified staff, all contracted from a friend outside of school. We haven't to this date seen any spread at school, and I want to go over some of our protocols because I think it's important for any of the families listening to know, and I'll try to do it briefly, but I want to encourage anybody that has questions not to buy into rumor mill or just to call me or come in and see me. I had a couple of emails last week with some accusations of things that turned out to be untrue, and once talked with the couple of parents, they were really glad that we'd had that conversation. So first of all, we follow a lengthy protocol system from Placer County Public Health, and it has a lot of steps and a lot of different requirements. It has a flow chart that is really crazy, and I'll just kind of hold it up. Hopefully you can see it, but it is you kind of have to have a degree in physics to follow it sometimes. So we work really hard at tracing as well as logging all our positive cases or potential cases. We are constrained though by some HIPAA laws, and sometimes people want to know all the information, who had it, who brought it to school, where did they get it from? And I'll get asked those questions, and I can't give those answers. The best analogy I have is, if anybody out there listening had a medical procedure, would you want me to email that to all our parents what your procedure was? It's no different with a COVID test. That's just the way it is. We always will contact the people who are most directly affected. If we have to quarantine a classroom, we will contact that teacher and give them the information, but I won't send an email out to the entire staff. It's kind of like working for the Navy on a submarine. If you work in the torpedo room, you get to know all about the torpedo room, but you don't have any idea, and you never get to go in the engine room, and vice versa. You're on a need-to-know basis. And that's kind of how we have to do this because of HIPAA laws. So we have, unfortunately, one of the things that's working against us is COVID symptoms and the common flu symptoms are all pretty much the same. And it is really hard sometimes to get parents to go have a test done on their child for COVID. But what we can do, and what we do is, if we hear that a child is sick or they're sent to the office sick, we tell the parents that the kid can come back once they have a negative COVID test and no symptoms for 72 hours, or they can quarantine for 10 days. In the end, it's the parent's choice. But just reiterate, I can't make people take a test. And some folks, some parents, some staff or whatever want us to mandate that happen. I don't have that power. I don't think President of the United States has that power to make somebody go take a medical test. But we can, and we do, if we know of any kid has symptoms or has exposure at home, we don't allow them to come to school for 10 days and be clear 72 hours. Symptomatic or exposed, anybody who's symptomatic or exposed, we recommend strongly they get tested. And if you're asymptomatic staff, we've set up a calendar reminder for all staff for surveillance testing, that they can go in and get a surveillance test done. And I know some of our staff have done that. All our positive tests are reported to public health, and they do their own contact tracing as well. And we have to turn in multiple forms to different agencies, including insurance, et cetera, when we do get a positive test. If there's anybody who is sick on campus, we tell them they can't come to work as a staff member. Even though they want to come to work, we tell them you can't come to work. And we've learned a hard lesson this week, because that kind of happened. And it wasn't out of spite or maliciousness. It was, I didn't really feel very bad. I just thought I had some allergies, right? And so we really got to fight that urge to be hard workers and kind of look at the public safety aspect. But we do have some things going for us. We're one of the few schools where all our kids wear masks, TK through 8th grade. Okay, we're doing the social distancing. We have partial days. We're cleaning our classrooms 3 times a day. A lot of our parents, and I don't know if the board's aware of this, I think I've told you this in the past, we have probably the best air filtration system in the world, because we got a grant a couple years ago that for schools that are located by high traffic areas. Us being on Interstate 80, we have these IQ air filters, which are like MERV 16s or 17s, I forget exactly which, but that's a super high rating. And we actually had a presentation done for the staff on that. We have kids in cohorts. We have any parents that travel out of the country, we make them produce a negative test for their kids to come back, and we're doing contact tracing. Again, we've had 7 cases total, 4 students. All 4 of those either got it from a parent or a sibling, and 3 staff, all classified, and they got it from either a spouse or a friend outside of school. So that's where we're at currently right now. Every board meeting, I will give you a update on COVID numbers. We also have a posted spreadsheet or Excel sheet that shows these numbers so our staff can log in. We started that today. We take it real seriously. We do not know of any COVID positive cases ever allowed on campus. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened. Doesn't mean that there's not asymptomatic positive people walking around, but we really stress that and make sure that everybody's wearing a mask. We don't have volunteers on campus. We trying to do everything we can to limit mixing of cohorts, even when it comes to dismissal time or interactions among cohorts. We're not doing assemblies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're doing just about everything we can in our power to keep people safe. But as you see with us, and you look at like the bigger districts, I want to reference Western Placer, which is Lincoln. They've been open 5 days a week since the beginning of the school year, half day. And they've had a high number of COVID cases. But in every situation, the contact tracing has gone back to outside of school. They haven't had one, to my knowledge, where the contact tracing has happened at school. I meet every week with Placer County public health officials on a Zoom call and all the superintendents. And I meet the next day with all the superintendents to make sure we're abreast on what everybody else is doing and protocols they're following. The protocols that we have to follow are about 5 or 6 pages long. There's 4 very defined scenarios that public health has given us, and we follow them. We're not just making it up. So we have a nurse we share with multiple districts, and I was really glad to hear she told Julia the other day on the phone that of all the districts she works with, she feels like we're doing it the most rock solid. So that helped me take a breath. In 37 years of education, this is without a doubt, hands down, the toughest thing I've ever done. I'd go build 10 gyms before I would do this again. So it's tough on everybody. It's tough on the employees. It's tough on the parents. It's tough on the kids. It's tough on the secretaries and administration. It's just tough on everybody. It's tough on society. And the sooner we all can get through this and get out of 2020 and get into maybe summer of 2021, maybe we'll have this thing licked. At least that's all our hope, right?
Yeah.
So that's my soup report for tonight.
Thank you. Board report. Does anybody in the board have any comments?
I have an inquiry about music. Rob, you may know that at Placer, I know high school's not a grade school, but Mr. Lawrenson struggled with the inability to let his students practice. They have now developed some protocols for musical instruments where you can, in fact, play with distancing and with some restrictions. I'm wondering if Ed has discussed that, or if we have explored that at all, or is music an elective that's just not being done right now? Yeah,
well, David, the only reason we haven't explored that as far as in person is because then we would have to keep kids here all together for lunch.
Yeah,
which makes it, much more scary safety wise. Ed is doing a phenomenal job with his band kids, with all things considered.
right.
Working with them, but if we were to try to pull that off, it would mix cohorts. And one of the big things, and the same with choral music, one of the big things that's kind of on the radar of California Department of Public Health is, that the things that go with that, you're blowing into a horn, which means there's spit flying, or you're singing and there's spit flying.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to go ultra conservative on that and keep people safe.
Yeah. And just so that people aren't worried, if they have students at the high school, they do have instrument, for lack of a better term, masks. So all the instruments will now have covers on. They have masks for the choir people. So and they've worked with university. I forget which university Mr. Lawrence had mentioned.
Yeah, one of the big ones back Midwest.
Yeah, had developed the protocols for doing this. So, yeah, the high school is doing that. But I agree. I think mixing the cohorts, if we were to do that, and as long as Ed's able to get, kids involved.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that he's able to pull it off. I mean, I wasn't sure what was actually viable with online, but
Yeah, I was kind of concerned about it going into the year, but hearing from parents, they're really thrilled with him. I think Bowman has a superstar in that guy.
Good.
Just to be honest.
We also, Mr. Singh, we also are offering our K3 group music once a week virtually with Mrs. Smith. So she records a video for each grade level and provides the music that way that the teachers have access to. And then I also know, like Mr. Graham said, that Mr. Pineda is basically doing one-on-one lessons with a lot of kids or small group instrument lessons virtually as well, working that way.
thank you. I just want to commend that the administration for everybody, Ian, Tech, that you've put this plan together. And I know it's very difficult. Well, I can't appreciate how difficult the circumstances are, but this is my hats off to everybody, the office, for what you guys have done collaboratively. Once again, Bowman looks like, I can see Bowman being a model, people looking for us, what are they doing over there? So.
We'll share that plan in a few minutes here once we get to 14.2. We have some public comments, I think, now, unless there's more from the board on their report.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Anyone else? Okay. Julia, you have comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have 9 comments here that I'm going to read out to you. The first one is from Mike Patterson, California Teachers Association. This is the message that Mr. Sussman was mentioning earlier. Dear Board, thank you for taking the time to listen to my written public comments. I would be with you virtually, but I am attending another school board meeting in Placer County at this time. I visited your school last summer year and met with leaders of the Bowman Ackerman Teachers Association. I was very impressed by your school and your teachers. You should all be very proud. I am in my 33rd year as the auto shop teacher at South Tahoe High School. Currently, I serve on the board of directors for the California Teachers Association. I represent 17,000 CTA members in 23 Northern California counties, including Placer. With Placer County in quadruple plus the purple baseline and a stay-at-home order, teachers are scared, and with good reason. They fear for their students, their community, their families, their co-workers, and themselves. As trustees, you must do everything in your power to protect the students and teachers at Bowman Charter School. Children can and do transmit COVID. COVID is real and people are dying. COVID is being transmitted in California schools that are open for in-person instruction and in schools that are requiring teachers to teach from their classrooms in a virtual setting. CTA's position is that schools should reopen to in-person instruction when it is safe to do so. In a recent CTA poll, the majority of teachers and parents agree with this position. Schools are not safe when a county is in quadruple plus the purple baseline status. We all know that the current hybrid model is not ideal. However, we must not put students and teachers' lives at risk by increasing the number of students on campus and in the classroom. As trustees, the health and safety of students and school district employees is your main responsibility. You must keep this in mind for every decision and vote you take. Please do everything in your power to ensure the safety of the students and the employees at Ackerman Charter School District and Bowman Charter School. At the bare minimum, all state guidelines for masking, social distancing, sanitation, testing, and contact tracing must be strictly followed. Anyone at a school site with COVID systems must isolate, and classes exposed must quarantine. As the board member who represents your teachers, I cannot sit quietly and allow them to be put at risk without doing everything I can to help your teachers and their students. Here is another message from Lori Blakowski. Good evening, all. As a concerned Bowman parent and active teacher, I wish to report out to the board how my school and district students, parents, and teachers are dealing with the consequences of increased in-person instruction, as I understand our charter has the intentions to also increase in-person hours. My place of employment, a middle school in Roseville, started out in November as the lucky ones. We went over a week without any positives, while our other schools, several elementary and 2 middle, began to have students and teachers test positive. The district was short subs, and teachers pulled from their preps to cover other classes. Eventually, being the healthy campus, both our assistant principals were pulled to cover teachers at other sites. The stress on working teachers and admin was intense. The next week, our campus began receiving reports of positives. It started with 1 teacher and 2 students, then 2 teachers and 4 students before the end of the week. There was talk of closing campuses completely. The following week, the district decided to not send home full classrooms where kids tested positive, but only those students closest to the positive case. Students continued to test positive. By the end of last week, our site had 1 teacher positive and 10 students. With a student population of almost 800, that doesn't seem like a lot, but mandated quarantines have caused nearly half of my students to be sent home. Parents have had to leave work early to pick up kids. Childcare had to be arranged at a moment's notice, and students are left at home wondering if they are falling behind in their classes, some taking their temperatures every hour in fear that they have the virus. Teachers are now in limbo with half our students in the classroom and the rest at home. Curriculum has to be adjusted to accommodate both modes of instruction, and our workload has doubled. No one is benefiting from the increase in hours right now. Knowing the county numbers are continuing to rise, I strongly advise against increasing hours at this time. Like I said, my site with 795 students only has 1 teacher positive and 10 students, yet those positives are negatively impacting over half our families with hundreds of students home quarantined. I appreciate the time my child has currently to be guided by her teachers in person, with small classes allowing for students to be spread out and restricted hours limiting exposure. I don't want to lose that. Dr. Laura Reich. I am very disheartened and disappointed to hear that the board is looking at options to increase in-person learning at this time. My 5-year-old and most young kids thrive on consistency, and while my daughter does not like distance learning any more than the next kid, she is just now adjusting to the current schedule. In addition, and more importantly, the pandemic is really picking up speed right now. Our ICUs are rapidly filling, and the CDPH approved nurse to patient ratio changes that will affect the quality of care those are sick will receive. We have a vaccine around the corner, and by the next trimester, many of our most high risk will have received it. Like most, I want my child to have more in-person school, but I feel it will be safer and better for their health, mentally and physically, to wait until the end of the 2nd trimester to change. Thank you. Sean Kreiner. As a pediatrician in this community for 8.5 years and a parent struggling to balance my 2 sons' physical health and safety with the risk of distance learning, including mental health concerns, decreased educational experience, and decreased socialization, I can honestly say that Bowman School has done a phenomenal job. I have heard probably over 20 learning models occurring locally from my patients, and none, in my mind, has done better at balancing the competing risks we face. Bowman has provided all children access to the myriad of benefits of in-person learning while maintaining incredible essential health measures that has truly impressed me as a physician. I commend the board, administration, and most importantly, the frontline faculty for the unbelievable amount of work it took. However, I am completely flabbergasted, bored, angry, and ashamed at the current plan to increase in-person learning. Every study that has looked at school reopening during this pandemic has shown that success can only occur when there is local control of COVID transmission. We don't have that luxury. Local case rates are soaring. There is unprecedented hospitalizations and ICU admissions. When ICUs are full, fatality rates go up. Furthermore, as students return from break, they will be in the middle of their incubation period from exposures occurring during the family gatherings that will inevitably occur, posing a significant increased risk of bringing the virus into our school. This is the absolute worst time to contemplate this. This is the time to increase caution, not to give in to temptation to reach for normalcy. It is hard and unfairly hard for some of our most vulnerable. But let me be blunt. To ignore these facts and increase in-person learning under these circumstances will contribute to a significant increase in viral transmission to our school and community, send people to the hospital, and cause deaths. Likely not any students, thankfully children tend to have mild disease, but a parent, grandparent, teacher, or staff. Help is on the way. Vaccines are shipping as this meeting is occurring. So I implore you as a physician, a pediatrician, a parent, a member of this community, do your part to keep our students, beloved teachers, and our community safe through these next troubling months. And if you do, we will all be able to get back to school and work safer and sooner. Dr. Kreiner, Fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Rebecca Kreiner. I am very concerned at Bowman's plans to increase on-site learning for students that will take effect in January, despite Placer's skyrocketing COVID-19 numbers. Bowman's current hybrid schedule, which allows appropriate spacing to minimize potential exposure among students, faculty, and staff, consciously addresses students' academic, social, and emotional needs. With only one positive incident and no apparent on-campus spread, the schedule is working well. It is, in fact, the best hybrid plan I've seen. Bowman should be proud of what they've accomplished. Disruption to a child's routine hampers learning. Due to this, the transition from full distance learning to hybrid was difficult. Sixth grade has only been on their current schedules for 2 weeks. This consistency has impeded an otherwise terrific plan, causing anxiety and emotional turmoil as students are unsure of when their classes are. We have experienced the frustration at our own house. To make it worse, our children are now told that they will be yet another change in January. This disruption of routine is far more harmful than 3 days of distance learning a week, both in terms of their ability to learn and their emotional health. They now anticipate entering Christmas break with no idea what their schedule will be in January. This harms their ability to perform academically, causes increased anxiety, increased depression, more anger outbursts, etc. It is simply bad for them. Not only will another transition be disruptive, the medical science does not support this plan. Placer County is seeing more individuals test positive for COVID than at any previous point. The national experts warned that this winter will be hard. Bringing kids back after many families will gather for the holidays will result in increased exposure and need for quarantining. More students on campus also means less attention to cleanliness, mask compliance, which has already been slipping, and symptom screening, which means higher likelihood of exposure to a great number of students. The yo-yo of quarantine to on-site will significantly harm the students by destroying any hope of finding a regular routine for their education this year. We all feel COVID fatigue. We all want return to normalcy, but we have to consider the best interest of our children. This means patience. Wait until the science shows us that it is safe, and then bring our kids back on campus. Here's one from Carrie Green. Live streaming classes is not equitable. It is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Name withheld. Dear Bowman Board and Admin, while we understand the frustrations, sacrifices, and tears expressed by other parents, we are very concerned about the possibility of opening school for more hours or more days. With nearly all of California now in the most restrictive tier and in a state of lockdown, Our family feels strongly the hybrid schedule should remain as is until the virus is under better control in our communities, both for student and community safety and for consistency for the kids. The virus is in its worst state to date, and spread is only expected to get worse after the holidays and likely all winter as people continue to gather and remain indoors due to the cold weather. Neighboring districts in Nevada County have already announced full distance learning at least through mid-January. If increasing hours is deemed unavoidable, our hope is the increase will utilize Wednesdays so kids return to 5 days of synchronous teaching like we had at the start of the school year. Cohorts A and B could alternate Wednesdays on campus, as has been proposed in other districts. It is our hope that parental pressure does not cause admin and the board to make a judgment call that leads to an unsafe environment for students, staff, and the community. We understand we are all struggling, but schools shouldn't be tempted to open unsafely in a pandemic. School spread means community spread. Until testing is required for all students and faculty, COVID dashboards do not represent the true infection statistic. We would like to also stress that all students, whether in cohorts A, B, or C, are entitled to receive the same quality of equitable education with the existing Bowman staff. Should there be an eventual plan to open 5 days a week, we would expect that students and families who are uncomfortable with increased class sizes or wish to remain in full distance learning will continue with live streaming into the classroom with the existing Bowman teachers and classmates, as will be done this Friday for minimum day schedule. Independent study, an online academy, and indefinite substitute teaching would all be inequitable. It would be absolutely devastating to those students if there was any such change. These kids have been through so much change that they need consistency now more than ever. Thank you for your time and consideration. Here's another letter from Sarah Brunkhurst. I understand that COVID-19 is real and that there are people who are legitimately scared of the virus. The statistics on the CDC website conclude that yes, children can get COVID, but the recovery rate is between 97% and 99.75%, with only 1 out of 5 children requiring hospitalization. Are we really keeping kids from the right to a free and appropriate public education over a virus that is more survivable than the flu? I am not speaking for everyone, but in my case, my children are younger and have barely begun their educational journey. These are their foundational years for basic academics. What they learn now, how well they learn it, and retention of those skills will impact their education for the rest of their lives. It is not fair to them as learners to only get 2 hours and 40 minutes 2 times a week of in-person instruction. They need more. I am asking that the district do better. I am asking the teachers to do better. I challenge anyone to dig deep and ask yourself why you became an educator. What does this mean to you? Please set aside your personal fears, politics, and whatever else is keeping you from coming back full-time and think about the kids. Do your job. You are more than essential. If you do not want to do the job, then please step aside and let someone who does. Furthermore, we haven't even begun to discuss mental health and the well-being of family units. Most parents do not want to be teachers, and most kids do not want to be taught by their parents. I am an essential worker who went to college. I have a career. I did not and do not want to be a teacher, but here I am doing it anyways. Every day is a struggle. My kids are unhappy. I am unhappy. Our family is unhappy. They do not understand why they can't go to regular school. They cry when doing the asynchronous work. Distance learning and hybrid model learning has taken all the fun out of learning. I would be dishonest if I didn't include all the yelling, arguing, and fighting that accompanies our current model. I want my kids back in school 5 days per week, full days. I love Bowman School and community, but am truly considering pulling my kids out and putting them in private school where they can get the education they deserve. Bowman is failing the kids and the community at this time. Please do what is right and let the kids come back to school full time. And our final letter is another one from Courtney King. I would like to first say that I appreciate all the effort the Bowman staff and administration are putting in to getting our kids back into classroom full time. With that said, I'm wondering if the teachers and administrators have started thinking about any plans to make up the learning loss our children are experiencing. Between the shutdown in the spring and the current schedule, there is no doubt the kids are falling behind. Will Bowman offer summer school to all kids? Will they shorten summer to extend the school year to allow time to cover all the missed curriculum? I know the focus right now is to get the kids back in the classroom 5 days a week, which I'm truly grateful for. But I would also like to know if we're going to be addressing the learning loss issue that is already happening. Thank you for your time. And those are our comments, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Julia. Okay, then. 14.1, the school reopening plan MOU.
So this is the MOU agreed upon between administration and the Bowman Teachers Association, BATA. Recognize Katie Desai, Mr. Sussman, Kane Sussman, and Donna Lavalier and Mrs. Wells for working, it feels like hundreds of hours on this agreement. It's quite detailed. If you look at it, it goes into everything from leaves to hygiene to, I mean, you name it, it's in there. I will without a doubt put that MOU up against any other district as far as detail and amount that's in there. And I think the BATA representatives would as well. They've said as much to me in negotiations. In some ways, I'll be honest, it's a real headache. And in other ways, you're real thankful that you have it all spelled out. So it's there. We recommend as administration, we have signed it. We recommend that the board approve the school reopening plan MOU. We've made sure that teachers in this MOU don't have to use their sick days. That we'll continue the FERCA days that are set to expire December 31st for any staff member that has to do leave due to COVID. We've made tons of definitions of everything. We've covered face covering requirements, hand washing requirements, purchased portable hand washing stations, following health guidelines, directional movement on campus. You can only enter or exit certain ways on campus, ingress, egress. We've addressed volunteers and meetings and gatherings and instructional minutes. I mean, it just goes on and on. It's super detailed, and I think in the end we'll all be thankful for it. Talked about health screening, notification, et cetera, et cetera. So substitute coverage, a lot of the things that were mentioned in some of these letters, I think we've mentioned in this MOU, and we're recommending that the trustees approve it.
Okay.
The
All right.
item 14.2, President?
Pardon?
The agenda item is, can you say the agenda item?
It's item 14.1.
14.1. I move we approve item 14.1, the MOU agreed on between administration and BATA.
This is Mike Bellis. I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Slane, second by Mr. Bellis. Roll call vote. Michael Bellis,
Aye.
Mark Hallberg,
Aye.
Justin Rednall,
Aye.
David Slane,
Aye.
Rob Congeezer, aye. Nice. Thank you, everyone that's worked on this. Greatly appreciate it. 14.2, the addendum to part 2 of the MOU.
Okay, with the board's permission, I am going to take over the screen and share a PowerPoint presentation with the audience and with the trustees. This is the part that most of your letters were about. So let me get this set up here. Please let me know when you can see it.
We can see it.
We
It's
got
half
it.
screen.
Half screen.
There you go.
There it goes.
Perfect.
Okay, so before I kind of get started, I want to try to address some of the comments, certainly not all of them. I will tell you that we have tried as teachers and administrators to walk a fine line here between all our families' needs. Some families are doing just fine. Two parents at home, educated, working super hard, and have been able to adapt as teachers, and we congratulate them. And we have other families, some of them single parents, some of them out of work now because their businesses were shut down or their jobs were lost, really struggling. They can't go look for a job because they're staying home with their child. Their unemployment's about to run out. They've got bills, and things are hard for them. And I just encourage everybody to try to think of each side equally and know that in this presentation, I'm going to try to walk that fine line between they're all our kids here, and we want the best for them in every way. We want them to be safe. We want them to be educated. We want them to be happy. We don't want them to be sad. We don't want homework wars. We want celebrations of work at home. And it's a difficult task, and we have a lot of difficult choices to make. I think when you're done with it, this presentation, I think everybody will see that not everybody got everything, but that everybody got something. And we'll get through it, and there'll be a point for the board, for the trustees to ask me questions. And just know this is really a presentation. I'm doing it, but it's really from our negotiations with teachers and administration. So first, you notice the date on here on this first slide. It says January 19th. This is 2 weeks after we come back, and that's purposeful. That's after Martin Luther King's birthday, and that's to try to allow any COVID spread that might have happened over the holidays to work its way kind of out of the kids' systems, and or however you want to say it, to try to allow us to get off on a good foot, and not have to start quarantining right away, to try to make sure that we're adhering to the science of spread over gatherings during the holidays. We have some real challenges that we are facing in education. Some of them were mentioned by parents in their letters tonight. Many of them were mentioned by the parents in person at the last board meeting, and have been mentioned to myself or Mrs. Wells multiple times. I will tell you, right now I want to thank the Teachers Association for working hard on this. They had to give some, and administration and the board, if you approve it, we had to give some. But in the end, the common ground, I think, is kids. And I think that we've built something pretty good here, and I hope everybody will be patient and hear me out. Some of our challenges, equity between our kids that have internet and our families who don't. Even though we've tried to provide every family a hotspot that doesn't have internet, it doesn't always work. Equity between the kids in the C cohort that are home full time, or the cohort that's at home part of the time, versus the kids that are here in person. Trying to make that balance it's almost impossible. We hear the need from a lot of our parents and community about in-person hours. We probably, out of all the districts in Placer County, I won't even say probably, I know currently we have the least amount of hours in person of any school district in Placer County as of last week. Unless something changed this week, that's what I know. Making sure our cohort C kids are feeling included, because they're not really in the traditional school. They're not here in person getting to see their friends. So making sure maybe at least online they get some social emotional learning time where they get to just visit with the other kids online. I know some of our teachers open up their Google Meets in the morning early just so kids can visit, and we think that's important. Having to deal with quarantining classrooms because of potential exposures, starting that class with in-person and then having to stop it and go back to distance learning. We've had to address that in this plan. Dealing with mixed messages. We've had mixed messages since January. And I mean, I can cite a couple of them. You know, don't wear a mask, do wear a mask. Don't leave your home, but it's okay to go out and protest. If it's a protest, that's okay. You know, you can't play Little League baseball, but you can do these other activities. And you know, it's really difficult for all of us because all of us are trying to find the logic and understand what CDC recommends, what they don't recommend. And I think we all forget that they're learning too. You know, the public health folks and the national public health folks, it's been a learning curve for them too. But in today's America with internet and cell phones and everything, we want answers immediately, and it just hasn't worked like that. You know, everywhere I go, everybody says, follow the science. And then I wrote on here, accept that science. And what I mean by that is whatever side you're on, you don't want to hear the science that contradicts typically your position. And I can give examples. You know, if you're a person sometimes, and not everybody, of course, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, and I want everybody to hear that. But sometimes parents that say, oh, I want all the kids back 5 days a week. Well, so do we. But when we point out that, look, there's almost 300,000 deaths in the country, we sometimes will get a response like, yeah, well, those are inflated, or those are just old people, or whatever. And then I can turn around and go to the other way too. You know, I can say, hey, look, there's under 0.25% spread in public schools. Yeah, but it's not safe. So either side, you can hear these arguments and these debates. And what's really unfortunate is it's costing people friendships, and it's dividing Americans. And we are not immune to that. And that's just the reality of it. And I would hope everybody would try to go, well, what's our common ground? And in our case, our common ground is our kids. I feel like, you know, and I think some of the teachers agree with me on this, and I'm sure some of the parents do. I feel like there's a lack of state leadership. You know, from the start of this, it was, you know, shut down, bend the curve for 3 weeks. And then we heard nothing until July 17th. And it was, you can't open until X, Y, and Z. But once you're open, you don't have to close if X, Y, and Z reoccur, which made no sense to anybody. I think all of us would rather just have a mandate. Either it's open or it's closed. But unfortunately for schools, we don't get that. We get something in the middle that's nebulous, that's hard to fathom. And, you know, I said this last time, but, you know, if you could look over my shoulder and look on that bottom shelf behind me, you'd see a stack of papers this big of outdated COVID regulation for schools and things we've worked on. And the main thing is, one of our challenges is making sure our teachers are safe and our kids are safe as much as possible. And this is really the crux of it. Doing what's right and doing what's best don't always match up. And I think that's what's hard for all of us, because some of us think one way is best and right, and the other side of us might think this is right and best. And both sides could be right and both sides could be wrong. It is a difficult thing. And as I said earlier, It's the hardest thing I've ever done in 37 years of education. But we're going to give this a shot, and we're going to try to alleviate people's fears and follow science and walk you through what our plan is. So we're going to follow the purple, red, orange, and yellow tiers that the state has set forth for a safer economy. Okay. Regardless of which tier, we will increase in-person time for cohorts A and B. But if we're in the purple and red tier, and I'll get into this a little more later, we will not increase the student contacts. Okay. Cohort C, we have to make sure they have 100% equity of time to what cohorts A and B are getting in person. It's not fair for the cohort C to get their time cut to nothing just because their family might have a medical condition in their family they're having to deal with and can't send their kids to school. So that has to be equitable. We have a lot of parents telling us that the afternoons for intervention don't work or aren't working for their kids, or the afternoon live streaming in the afternoon isn't working, especially for our younger kids, like our kinders and our TKers and our first graders, because that's their nap time. They're done by that time. But we're asking them currently to log back in and be taught in the afternoon. It's also making our teachers work 2, 3, 4 times as hard because they're having to re-prepare lessons again and again. Now, in some ways, that's been better for our teachers because they can get the lesson dialed in. But for a lot of teachers, that's been a lot of work. We're going to propose that Wednesdays are no longer just an asynchronous day for A and B. We want them to rotate every other Wednesday between the A and B. So one week A will go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the next week B will go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they'll get more time on Wednesday. So here's how it kind of looks. We're going to stay in our current cohorts. When we come back in January on the 5th, we will be in our current cohorts, and on the 19th, if we are in purple or red, either one, we will be staying in our cohorts that we are currently in. If anybody wants to still leave from our A or B cohort at any time and go to C cohort, they may. They just can't come back. They can't go back and forth. Okay? But we will stay in our current cohorts. That way our numbers are not increasing during the day. Just the amount of time that the kids are here on their days will increase. If the state goes to, or our county goes to orange or yellow, we will then allow our A and B cohorts to attend together 5 days a week for the shortened day that we're doing currently. This is our schedule that would start on the 19th of January after Martin Luther King holiday. Currently, our kids are getting out at about 10:50 a.m. and TK and K. They will now get out at noon. So they're still in their cohorts, A and B and C. They just get to stay a little longer. Everybody on campus has grab-and-go lunch as they do now. There's no mixing of cohorts at a long lunch time or at a recess time. The recesses are done by grade level only, and you will see that as you go down in these yellow boxes here. Our first, second, third grade, they get out at 12:50 instead of 11 o'clock. Okay. You see same for fourth and fifth, and then our middle school gets out at 1:05. Right? Well, to do this, that means we cut off a lot of time in the afternoon. And that was the time mostly that the C cohort was getting their time was live distance learning over Google Meets. Well, what we're going to do instead, and this is the thing that makes this able to work, is we are going to live stream this time in class. This, if you see, I'm pointing at fourth grade here. Hopefully you can see my cursor. From 8:10 to 12:50 dismissal, all these classrooms, no matter what grade you're in, will live stream their classroom to home, to the C cohorts, to any kids or families that are quarantined or that we have to quarantine because of possible exposure, but they will see their teacher teaching their classmates and them at the same time. We bought these new cameras, these poly studios that actually follow the teacher around the room. They don't focus on the classroom; they focus on the teacher. They're high resolution. You'll be able to see the smart board or the whiteboards, and we can do this safely because we're not increasing student contacts on campus at all while we're in purple or red. Okay, the same number of kids are coming to school. So like right now, a lot of our primary classes have 7 to 9 kids in their class in the morning, maybe 10, but most of them are pretty small in our A and B cohorts. That's not going to change as long as we're in red or purple. It's just they will stay a little bit longer so they can get a little bit longer education. Okay, what does this mean for our prep time? This is a first in Bowman history. I think all our teachers have the same equal amount of prep time. You see 140 minutes. They'll all have interventions still in the afternoon for enrichments, for helping kids make up learning loss, to meet with individual groups that might need some extra work on some similar concepts, those things. So if I go back to the schedule, you'll see every grade level has intervention times here, up and down, all the way TK through 8th grade. Teachers can schedule a meeting with 2 kids, 3 kids, 5 kids, or 1 kid to meet with whatever their needs might be. So that's still there. The only day that doesn't happen is on our Wednesdays, because that's the day we do all our special ed IEPs, our 504s, and our professional learning community tasks. We are still going to offer music 1 time a week in class for our youngins, and we'll be offering band and music for our middle school kids. Just as it's done now, it'll just be in the afternoon. There will be some conflict if a band kid needs some extra help or intervention. They might have to miss band one day to work with the math teacher in middle school, Mrs. Desai, to get some math help. But in any schedule, that's how it's going to be. So we've tried to make sure that we haven't forgot about learning loss and that kids get something there. Remember, we're working with a fixed amount of time. Okay, we only have 8 to 3 roughly, and some of that is protected contractually, like a 40-minute lunch and things like that for our staff. So step 1 looks like this. And that's what we'll be in January. We'll stay in our current cohorts. We'll have live streaming for cohort C. We'll have PM sessions can be used for intervention and enrichment. And our Wednesday school will be in session for the same amount of time as the other days, the Monday and Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays. It's just the Wednesday will rotate every week between A and B cohorts. So as an example, week 1, A would go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. B would just do their Thursday, Friday. But on week 2, A would go Monday, Tuesday, and B gets to come 3 days a week. So they're gaining time, still staying in their cohort that they're in, not with additional students. Step 2 is if we went to orange or yellow, and the only difference here, we would still have the same dismissal times, the same grab and go lunch, all of that. We would just let the A and B cohorts come together on those days, but only if we're in a safer tier here. If this is a scary proposition for parents at that time, and they just said, hey, I'm still not sold on it, I'd like to go to C cohort, they may. We're making sure everybody in the school, we don't have this quite filled out. This will be for 1st grade, K and TK, these open boxes at the bottom. But every kid on campus will get PE at least twice a week, outside and some fresh air. All right. The rest of the time, in those times, they are getting their social emotional learning time, getting to visit with each other, those types of things. This is our recess times. You can see they're all grade level specific. 1st grade isn't out with 2nd and 3rd grade. They're only out with 1st grade, just as it is now. None of that's changed. Their recess time is 15 minutes. They can eat a snack, all of that. if you came to school and you're able to go out on our playground, you're looking at, when first grade's out, you're looking at no more than 30 kids out on the big playground in the field at one time. 30 kids out on the playground, they're all over the place, and they're all still wearing masks. So kind of have a comparison to kind of sum it up. On the left side in the red, this is what we're currently doing, and on the right is what we're proposing to do starting the 19th of January. Currently, students attend in person 2 days per week for 2.5 hours daily. We're proposing students will be minimally be able to attend 3 days at least every other week, because that Wednesday's alternating, and they will go 4.5 hours daily. Okay. Currently, we're doing the asynchronous work all day Wednesday. We're saying no, there will be live streaming and in-person teaching for either the A or B cohort, because they're going to rotate. There's no afternoon cohorts. There's afternoon cohorts right now with just the C group or live streamers. That will be gone because they'll be live streaming these same 4.5 hours as their classmates. So they'll be more a part of class, not something separate from class. And we already mentioned the new video cameras. So we feel like we've addressed all these issues. We feel like we've addressed health, equity, and loss of instructional time for students. We've maintained time for interventions for everyone. We've built continuity for reopening in the future. So I on this note, I don't see us ever this year probably getting to a full day unless vaccines roll out at a lot faster pace than what we're hearing. At this point, I just don't see it. I see us doing a grab and go lunch for everybody the rest of the year. We've allowed for the same lessons to be taught live to all students, so there is equity. We've built in flexibility for possible quarantining of cohorts if there's an exposure or a potential exposure to COVID. We've addressed board and parent concerns on more instructional time and safety. We've addressed the afternoon exhaustion of both students and teachers. We've maintained safety within the limited mixing of cohorts. We've continued all our safety protocols. Kids are still wearing masks. We're still disinfecting daily. It's still grab and go lunches every day. There's no mixing of cohorts. We're still doing our contact tracing. We're still doing all the things I talked about in the COVID report I gave as the superintendent's report earlier, as far as quarantining and contact tracing, all that. We've maintained a full day kids club program for our essential workers. And by the way, they've been here with us all since COVID started, and we haven't had any exposures there, or not exposure, any positive transfers of COVID within kids club to this date that we know of. We've addressed the possible holiday spike by waiting until January 19th, and we've increased weekly in-person instruction in this plan from 5 hours per week to 13.5 hours per week minimally if you have the Wednesday included, and it can go to 22.5 if we go to orange or yellow tiers as a county. All right. Again, not everybody got everything they wanted, but we've tried to address everything. We have a lot of families suffering. We have a lot of families scared. We know. I mean, for gosh sake, we had an 11-year-old in Lodi 2 weeks ago. He's already forgotten take his own life on distance learning. I couldn't imagine that happening to one of our families and one of our kids, and how I might feel. And you know, you might say, well, you're being overreactionary. No, because that's happened. And you know, child abuse reporting is way down. And the reason it's way down in this country is because it's the teachers who look out for the kids when it comes to child abuse. There are kids all over the country tonight going to sleep who've been abused, who aren't having anybody reach out to help them because they're not in school enough to build the relationship with the teacher to maybe tell them, or for the teacher to notice that they have an injury or what have you. And, you know, to try to balance that with also trying to balance safety is a hard thing to do. And I'm really trying to plead to everybody on both sides of this argument that you both have great points, and safety cuts a lot of different ways, and so does health. And we've done our very best as a teaching staff, as administration, to come up with a plan that's rooted in safety, rooted in kids learning, because we know there's a lot of learning loss. And it's not because people aren't working hard. Okay, it's not a question of that. Okay, it just is what it is, and we've got to do everything we can to minimize that, but still maximize safety. And we think we've tried to address that fairly well here. Okay, so for the board, any questions? And I'll leave this PowerPoint up in case I have to go back to a slide.
Any questions, gentlemen?
No questions. Just very well done for everyone.
Yeah, a big thank you to everyone coming together and finding a way forward with this. I'm very pleased. I know I've been probably the most outspoken proponent for more time in the classroom, and I'm very pleased with this. I'm very pleased with the way forward that we found. I think this will address a lot of issues. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll move we approve the addendum to part 2 of the MOU.
I'm going to second. So motion by Mr. Bellis, second by Mr. Congeezer. Roll call vote. Michael Bellis.
Aye.
Mark Hallberg.
Aye.
Justin Rednall.
Aye.
David Slane.
Aye.
And Rob Congeezer. Aye.
Okay, so I want any parents that are listening is we will be getting out a letter hopefully tomorrow afternoon, and we'll be posting this PowerPoint on our website so you can go see it and see the schedule. I really encourage you to all stay out of rumor mill and what you're hearing this and you heard that, because like I think I might have said earlier, I'm not sure, but I had a few conversations this last week with parents who had heard this, that, and the other. And I think after we got done talking, they felt a lot better. You know, there's a lot of things that get misconstrued as fact. And, you know, I encourage all of you to reach out to Mrs. Wells or myself, because both of us haven't had a day off in a year, over a year now, because we worked every day this summer because there wasn't guidance from the state. Our BATA representatives, they worked much of the summer because there wasn't guidance from the state. And there are pretty clear answers to most of your questions. I have nothing to hide. I don't want anybody to get sick. I don't want kids not to learn. And I'm trying to be as transparent as I can with everybody. But if somebody were to call and say, well, tell me who tested positive, I'm not going to do that because I can't legally due to HIPAA. But I will give you as much information as I can. And I can tell you all our protocols and sit down and show them to you if you ever want to come in, because we didn't write them. They're given to us by public health, and we follow them to the letter. I'm trying to reassure the parents that we're doing everything we can. But in the end, we can't do it without the parents. And as an example, what I mean is if we call a parent and say, hey, Kelly didn't attend school today. Is he okay? And the parent lies and says, oh yeah, he was just tired, so I kept him home, but the kid was really sick. And the parent didn't want to tell us because they were worried we were going to say they had to go get a test. Then you're not keeping us all safe. We need the truth, and we need to partner with you. And we need you to either quarantine when your child's sick and let us know, or if they have a positive test, you need to let us know. Or if they're just sick, we ask you to go get a test, and if it's negative, they can come back to school if they don't have symptoms. but it's really a partnership. And the better the partnership, the more openness and honest, and a lot of our parents have been, the better we'll be. Parents, if you're feeling sick, suspend that sleepover, or maybe think about twice even having sleepovers for your kids. We had that happen, this year where parents were positive. None of the kids luckily got it, but they had a bunch of kids over for the weekend. And just make smart decisions. It'll help us, and it'll help us have your kids and all the kids be better educated. So, off my soapbox.
Thank you. No, thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for, like I said, thank you for finding a way forward on this. Okay, so item then, where are we at here? 15.1, the mid-placer reps resolution.
So, Miss Ann, or Julia, I question, is this for the rest of this year or is this for next year?
I'm not sure. I think Julia might know the answer to that one.
Yes, so we only have to do this resolution when there's a change in representation. So this will take effect when Kelly retires and Kristen comes in as the superintendent.
Effective July 1st.
Yeah.
Correct.
No, January 1st.
Oh, no.
Just kidding.
Time's not quite up.
David Slane moves that we approve the resolution 15.1. The district relationship be maintained for Kristen's tenure.
So this will be Kristen and Ann will be our reps.
Thank you.
Mike Bellis, I'll second that.
All right, a motion by Mr. Slane, second by Mr. Bellis. Roll call vote. Michael Bellis,
Aye.
Mark Hallberg,
You're muted, Mark.
Aye.
thank you. Justin Rednall,
Aye.
David Slane,
Aye.
and Rob Congeser, aye. Thank you. And then let's see. 15.2, budget overview for parents.
Good evening, board. This is Kristen Wells. I am giving the report on the LCFF budget overview for parents, which is a newly required document this year. As you recall, last year in the 1920 school year, they suspended the LCAP. So we instead had to write the learning continuity plan, which we did earlier this year, and we've gotten a letter from PCOE that we were approved. But the state wanted a document that reconciles the 1819 LCAP along with the learning continuity plan kind of together, an overview document for parents that they can see it and see where our funding is going. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll go from there. Okay, can you see this document with the Pac-Man looking things?
Yes.
Yes.
This is the document that will be put on our website after your approval. It is part of the Assembly Bill 1808, which will provide an overview for the LCAP. So you can see in this document a quick overview. This is all of our funding in the blue pie altogether, which includes this year includes the CARES Act. It includes other federal funds, our local funds, which come from our community redevelopment from the county, our sped apportionment from the state, and our earned interest is our local funds. And then this portion, this 7% down here, all other state funds that would be considered lottery, mandated costs, mental health dollars. So we took this graph. Actually, this graph was made by the company that does the formatting for these documents. So this large blue Pac-Man piece now slides over and becomes this tan piece, which is the majority of our budget. So a total of 4,721,000, which is 84% of our budget. And in that 84%, that's broken down into two parts: the LCFF supplemental and concentration grants. We don't get any concentration grants, so it's just the LCFF supplemental, and then all other LCFF or the general fund dollars are right here. So kind of just giving us a breakdown of how where our money comes from, and for parents to see. The LCFF supplemental money is based on our high needs, our foster youth, our special education, our McKinney-Vento, our homeless population dollar enrollment. So that's where we get that money. Okay. So this document has to have, goes through and asks a lot of questions, asked Anne a lot of questions. Thank you, Anne, for putting this all in, all the money dollar amounts in there. And then once you enter your dollar amounts based on that and how much you've spent and how much you've generated, you prompts. Well, you have to answer 3 different prompts. And the first prompt is to compare the expected expenditures of the LCFF, the projected expenditures of the LCFF with the actual expenditures. And so the first question wants to know what did we spend our money on if we projected it and it didn't come out to be the exact same amount. So our overflow, we expected plans to spend $6 million for this current school year. Of the amount, $99,000 was tied into our learning continuity plan, and that left over $5.9 million is not included in the learning continuity plan, and the state wants to know what we're doing with that money. So we're spending that on student supplies, services, staff salaries, benefits, facilities, maintenance, and general operating costs. So basically 100,000 of it is for the learning continuity plan, and all the rest of it is for was allocated to the learning continuity plan, and all the rest of it is for our our services costs. The next part of the narrative that they ask us to generate is if we had 276,000 in the LCFF supplemental grants. That's that foster youth, that English learner, those high needs students. Must describe how we intend to increase or improve the services of those learning. So we in the learning continuity plan, we budgeted for 30,000, and we did that because at a time we didn't know we were getting that much money. The CARES Act hadn't been finalized yet. We hadn't received all the amount that we were getting. So we kind of took a stab in the dark, and that's where we ended up with. Obviously, we were way low, which is a good thing. It's a good problem to have. And so how did we have to spend? We had to spend this much money, and how do we do that to further improve the programs and services for high need students? So we did intervention tiers, all of the scheduling, all the purchasing of equipment, the hotspots, all of those types of things that we wrote out in the LCP, the learning continuity plan. Those are the things that we actually were able to do and have money to spend those for, to offset those costs for those high need students. So in the end, what they really want to know is that the services for our high need students were either improved or increased. And in 2019-20, we said we were going to spend this much. Actually, we budgeted this much. We only spent this much, so they wanted to know what we did with the difference. And because of the closing of the books and the end of the year and how the end of last year ended up, not knowing, we had to dip into our general fund and cover that extra amount. So we used that 32,000 plus another 100,000 or so to offset the cost of the special education fund encroachment on the general education funds. So again, this is a document that's meant for parents. We're encouraged to use as much understandable language for parents that we can. It will be published on our website, and the purpose is for them to be able to for us to be transparent in how we spend our money. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I can understand. I consider myself a fairly intelligent guy. I know you guys don't, but I can understand one pie, but I submit to this board, most parents will have a difficulty understanding those two pies. My first comment. The second thing that stands out to me is we're going to spend $6+ million. We're only going to get about I think I calculated about a $380,000 shortfall, which isn't between inflows and outflows, if I understand this correctly. So those are my comments. I don't really understand the two bicycle spoke pies. Are you saying that the right pie is a shrunken amount of revenue? Or
No, the right pie.
Saying?
I'm saying that the right pie, this tan pie or whatever color you're looking at, this is all of this big blue pie. And I agree with you about the pies. We had that discussion this afternoon. This is what the company that generates the document, this is the graph that they generated. We can ask them, and we probably should ask them with your input, to go back and redo and just have one pie. We talked about having this 2 pie thing. So today, so this yellow pie over here is this big, all of this 84%.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'm looking.
See that total projected revenue of 5.6 million.
Yes.
Our expenditures are anticipated to be 6 million. So I come up with like a $380,000 shortfall.
What? So say that again.
I'm just looking at 2 preambles. You're saying the projected revenue is $5.6 million.
Right.
Above, you have a statement that says we will spend $6 million. I'm just making an observation. I don't know how important that is for parents, but scroll down. Oh.
Okay.
Right here.
There you go. The Ackerman Charter School District expects to spend $6 million.
Budgeted.
I'm just making an observation.
So that number, like this is Ann, sorry. Kristen was saying that we had to fill out a form to get this done. And they asked for specific fund levels. And then our total budgeted general fund expenditures. So that would include both restricted and unrestricted dollars, which these, additional to the LCFF funding. So, but I see where the confusion comes in, because the way that all these numbers tie in, it's not clear on the format that they have.
Yeah, I need to read it more than once. I didn't go through it carefully. I'm just thinking for the typical parent, and maybe I'm being arrogant. I would struggle with this a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
David, I don't disagree. Ann and Kristen, is this something that is time sensitive, or can we bring it back and kind of have this cleared up? Just a thought.
It's time sensitive. It's due to the county office and the state tomorrow.
Okay.
You guys, this is just, I'm not trying to be a spoke in the wheel. I'm just making I'm making an observation. I'm not saying you have to rework it. A lot of things that we send out in education are not easy for the typical parent. Okay, let's just be candid. So I'm just saying. That's all. I'm not saying. I'm just making an observation. I don't think you have to rework it unless you guys think there's something like fundamentally confusing or.
I think, David, it is what it is. I
Yeah.
don't, I mean, in 7 years, I don't think I've had a parent come in and ask about the overall budget and what's it look like.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
It's another compliance document from the state of California, which we so enjoy. And a lot of times they tend to create more confusion than they do solutions.
Yeah. No, I like the intent that we're trying to send something to parents that's, condensed and that they can grasp fairly quickly. I like the intent. I'm just.
Well, this is Mike. Maybe we can, satisfy the state requirement, but I'll key on what Dave's saying. A tool like this could be valuable for just, us. Let's design our own to share with parents, teachers, whoever wants to see it, but maybe just kind of an overview, simplified version of the budget and the sources and, where we get our money. And to a large degree, the great big portion of that is not discretionary. We're given these chunks of money that we're forced to spend on certain things. And it's not that we get a big pool of money we can do whatever we want with. Our discretionary portion is quite small, actually. So, yeah, let's comply with whatever the state wants. But I think to, again, pawn off what David's saying, I think this might be an interesting task to come up with a document that does simplify to the best we can what the budget is, where the money comes from, and what we're spending it on.
Right.
Well, maybe we can, if I could, make a recommendation that you approve this for tonight since it's time sensitive. And we'll work on a corresponding document over the next month or so, or a couple months to try to make this a little more understandable.
I'll move we approve 15.2 budget overview for parents.
I'll second. I was just making a comment. David Slane seconds. Approval of 15.2.
Okay, Rob, you have a first and a second. You're muted.
Rob.
You're muted.
I'm sorry.
If I just 1 second here, Rob, if I'm doing my rudimentary math, the 5.61 of projected revenue does not include the CARES money or the 99 or the I believe it's the other federal funds. It's about that same amount. So I don't know if it comes out to be that. So I'm not sure if that 6 million figure now does include the CARES money and this 99,000 from the continuity plan.
I think it does. I think what's missing is there's some restricted it's the property tax dollars that go into the restricted side funds. And I even had reached out to the county office asking about that. And she said they struggle with that every year with the LCAP reporting as well, because it's like some of the funds are included and some aren't. It's all what's tied to the LCAP, which if you can keep it broad enough, then your hands aren't as tied as you have to spend it on, this point, that point, that point, you can cover all the points if you say you're going to cover all the points.
Right. Well, I agree with Kelly. I think, we'll obviously we'll approve this and then, come up with something of our own that, we'll apply this to the budget to the parents, but we'll come up with something that's a little more understandable, I think, than this, I agree, David. It is kind of out there. But that being said, I had a motion by Mr. Bellis, a second by Mr. Slane. Roll call. Michael Bellis?
Aye.
Mark Hallberg?
Aye.
Justin Rednall?
Aye.
David Slane?
Aye.
And Rob Congeser, aye. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. And then we have 15.3, the first interim report.
Okay, good evening, Mr. President and members of the board. We've got the best for last, right? I'll try not to make it last too long, all these great numbers. Kristen, do you need to stop sharing so I can share, or does that matter? Okay, I will go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. And does everyone see the first interim report screen up?
Yeah.
I do, Ann.
All right.
Yep.
So we've got our 2020-2021 first interim report, and this is taking a look at where we are now compared to what we had originally budgeted. Okay. Our certification of financial condition, we've got our positive certification showing that we will meet our financial obligations for the current fiscal year and the 2 subsequent years. Anything in criterion standards that were not met or are marked yes will be reviewed. And all the explanations are entered within the criterion standard document, and that's the full report is included at the end of the packet. So looking at our multi-year projections over this year and the 2 out years, a reminder on the unrestricted dollars, these are the ones that are flexible. We can use them on operating supplies, salaries, and services. And we have our LCFF revenue, and this is primarily state aid, our EPA dollars, and the property taxes. We show 4.9 million over all 3 years. It appears flat, but there is a slight decrease over each year. Other state and local revenues remain consistent, and our contributions to restricted are 803,000. And the 565,000 of that covers special education excess expense. Our total revenue is 4.3 million this year, 4.2 million in the 2 out years.
So real quick on that special ed expense, so everybody understands, that has grown over the years. We now have several kids in county placements for their severe needs. So that's why that number. Sorry, Ann.
That's okay. Okay, our unrestricted multi-year expenditures. We calculate this using our step and column increases annually for both certificated and classified salaries. Our benefits, covers health and welfare as well as CalSTRS and CalPERS. And as you see, it increases each year. We got a bit of relief from CalSTRS when the governor's budget kind of fell through in the spring, and they did lower their rates, helping out the education world a bit. Where CalPERS gave us a little bit of a reprieve last year and this year, but as you see, that one also starts climbing again next year, and quite a bit, going up to 25.9% in 21-22.
So, hey, Ann, can you elaborate a little more on what that percentage means? I mean, when we say it's 18.4%, what's that mean?
18.4% of the certificate. CalSTRS is on certificated salaries, but 18.4% of their salaries. So it's
that we contribute.
Yes, that we contribute, right.
Back to the state. So the state giveth and the state taketh away.
Taketh away. Yes, this is true.
Yeah. So you see in the out years for CalPERS, a quarter of all our classified pay or funding for our classified staff, we have to give a quarter of it, a little bit over a quarter of it back. So just thanks, Ann.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. That's a good way to look at it. Our services increase each year with our rising insurance and utility costs. We have expenses of $4.4 million this year, 4.5 next year, and 4.8 million the following year. This is a net decrease in our fund balances with 139,000 this year, 238 next year, 538 the following year. So at second interim, we're going to be taking a lot closer look at those out years and seeing what we can do to conserve our expenses. So a snapshot of our beginning and ending balances. You can see there our beginning balance declines and ending balance as well. Our reserve for economic uncertainty stays at 10%, 604,000 this year, 593 next year, and 622,000 the following year. Looking at our restricted funds, these are the non-flexible funds that we spend on Title I, special ed, restricted maintenance, mental health, and professional development. So the LCFF revenue here of $63,000 is the property taxes that we get for restricted. Federal revenue, this year only, we received the CARES and the learning loss mitigation funds. And these came with tight strings and time limits. The biggest piece of money that we got with the learning loss mitigation, it had to be spent by the 30th of December. A few of the other buckets go out. One goes to June of 21, and another one goes to the fall, and I think one more the next fall. So we have a little bit of time on that we can still use to mitigate some of our learning loss. Okay. And our revenue overall for restricted is 1.7 million this year, 1.4 million in both out years. Our expenditures, again, the salaries are using the stepping column increases for over both certificated and classified, and the benefits again increase in each out year. We've got projected overages that we will be covering with unrestricted funds, and our expenses for restricted is 1.6 million this year and 1.4 million in the 2 out years. We have a net increase this year in restricted of 101,000, and that's primarily the learning loss money, the CARES money. So the assumptions that we used for working on the first interim, this is the page I've highlighted on the page in the packet, these bullet points here. So the changes that we've made from original budget include the increase in classified staff with the return of students to campus. Our current enrollment, now this is a little different than the page that you saw at the beginning of tonight's packet, but my numbers are based on the end of October when first interim is reported. So our enrollment at that time was 572, and we're at the hold harmless ADA of last year, 574. And just so that you can see the difference in enrollment, last year, these numbers were based on an enrollment of 593. Our lottery revenue is $199 per student, which it came to about $5,000 lower than we had anticipated. We did get an increase in the EPA revenue of $368,000. That's helping us out when we get to our deferrals. We have the CARES ESSER funding of $20,000, again, one-time money. The learning loss mitigation funds, there's GEAR, which is the Governor's Emergency Education Relief, the CR, Coronavirus Relief, and GF is the general fund, all one-time money. Our contribution to special ed at $565,000 with our 3 new students. We have the increased expenditures are listed in our first interim due to our technology and curriculum, the PPE purchases, and all paid for with the learning loss money. We have our cash deferrals that we are looking at February through June of 21. Equates to about $769,000 that will be pushed out into next year. That's about a third of our apportionment for the year. To give you an idea of what the deferrals look like, so here we've got 2021, and this is next year, 21-22. We start here with February. This little schoolhouse gets pushed out. 53% of our apportionment will be pushed out to next November. We've got in March, April, and May, 82% of each of those apportionments will be pushed out to October, September, and August. June, our 100% of that apportionment will be pushed to July.
So this is your IOU from the state on your yearly funding. So, you know, think of any of us if we could work like that. Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
All right. But the state, in their infinite wisdom, go, you know, their thoughts are, well, you have reserves. All districts have some reserves, or they can go borrow, because a lot of districts don't. So they go do what they call a trans, or they go borrow money to get by to meet cash flow. And that's okay with the state because it's an IOU. And the thing that's ironic is it was just this January, last January in the governor's budget pre-COVID that we got back to even from 2007's deferrals. That's how long it took, 13 years.
Kelly and Ann, I saw some indication that they thought that the deferrals due to the stock market and increased tax revenues that they hadn't anticipated, that we might not have to have the deferrals.
There's some talk about that in the legislature because they are flush because the state of California makes most of their tax dollars not on any of us on this call, but on dividends in the stock market. But with more high-tech companies leaving the state, that'll start decreasing. Yeah, so they're pretty flush in money with the stock market being over 30,000. But not everybody's on board with not doing the deferrals because they don't know what the feds are going to do as far as coronavirus relief. You know, that's still hung up. So anybody's guess, but we only have one way to figure this. The only way Ann can really figure this right now is conservatively and only can assume that we will have the deferrals. If we don't, hey, that's a great day in Auburn. But for now, the only way we can do it is plan to have them.
Mm-hmm.
When will they indicate for sure about that? Do they have any, do we know?
It won't be till after January at the earliest because they still have to seat the legislature. And they have to, governor has to propose his budget in January. And they may not even agree to it till July.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So
thank-
we plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Exactly.
Well said. See, Ann said it in 5 words that I tried to, it took like 20 minutes.
So our assumptions for the 2 out years remain pretty consistent with the previous page. However, we are estimating our enrollment at the lower number, and using our past practice of 96% estimated attendance, we're looking at ADA of $550,000. I'm sorry, $550. I'm getting this all wrong. It's too late at night. 550 would be our ADA. Our LCAP will be the leading document for the budget once again after taking the year off. We've got a bit of a decrease anticipated in the certificated salaries with the administrative personnel change. Looking at math curriculum adoption in 22-23. We have heard from our insurance carrier that we should budget for a 47% liability increase, which is 9% higher than what we had budgeted for this year. And again, to anticipate cash deferrals for the following year. The county office has asked us to work that into our budget for the 21-22 school year as well. So, and that equates to about 40% of our apportionment for that year. So looking a little bit more in detail at our general fund, this is now looking at the differences in what the approved original budget and what changes we're seeing now, either with the LCFF calculators, other funding that we've received, and expenditures that we've made. So with the LCFF, we had the increase in EPA funding, which amounted to just over $384,000. We had a decrease in state revenue, primarily the lottery dollars. And then we've got some one-time money, local revenue with grants and donations for a total revenue of $5.1 million. And this again is in the unrestricted side of the funds. Our expenditures, we have on the unrestricted side, we have a decrease in certificated salaries and benefits, as we had an increase in revenue in restricted, so we're able to move them over there, freeing up some money on the unrestricted side. Books and supplies shows an $84,000 increase, and that's mostly due to carryover after closing the books. For a total expenditure of $4.5 million. Yeah. So all of this brings us to our beginning balance of $2.3 million and ending balance of $2.2 million. And of that ending fund balance, it's made up of our petty cash, revolving cash, and other assignments of $1.6 million, the mandated costs, the targeted instructions, cafeteria maintenance, and special ed, litigation, and ADA loss reserves. We also have our 10% reserve for economic uncertainties. On the restricted side, we've got an increase in property taxes for the of $2,000, almost $3,000 in LCFF sources. Our federal revenues, the CARES money coming in, we've got that $260,000 increase. We also saw a rise in Title I, Title IV, and our special ed grant there. A reminder on the CARES and the learning loss funds, it's a one-time funding. We've got our, one of the funds coming in on the learning loss was came in as state revenue from the state general fund. And we had loss of about $3,000 in lottery funding in state revenue there for restricted. And total revenue then, the difference in the total revenue for restricted is $882,000. Okay. We've got, here's where we're showing that the salaries moved over from unrestricted into restricted. Books and supplies, we've got a $139,000 increase in expenditures, all COVID money used on that, the CARES learning loss mitigation funds. And services, most of that was related to that funding as well, with a little bit of increase in special ed due to placement off campus. Got other outgo, $102,000, and that's part of the special ed bill back that we pay to the county office. Other financing sources, we've got our contributions, the $112 increase there for coming from the unrestricted funds. Our beginning balance is $382,000, ending balance $483,000, and with that increase being from the learning loss mitigation funds. So our summary of all our other funds. I think Kelly touched on earlier how we've seen the decrease in revenue for both Fund 12 and Fund 13. So we have altered our expected revenue and expenses for Fund 12. That one is down $87,000, and we'll be watching that one closely as the year goes on. And so we're still, they had enough of a beginning balance to help cushion that a bit, and we're hopeful for a positive ending balance. Cafeteria fund, the Fund 13, same thing there. We actually had to decrease the revenue in that one by about $130,000, just based on what we are seeing coming in so far to date. Our expenses, the only decreases we could really make were for food and supplies. And as Kelly had mentioned, we have to continue their salaries as they are all through the year. We cannot furlough any of our food services, custodial, or transportation folks. Fund 20, our post-employment benefits, revenue there's all based on interest. We have one person using that fund, and we expect to transfer those funds out towards the end of the year for a total of $2,400. Fund 25, we've been surprised with some revenue in this one of $14,000. People aren't going on vacation or out to dinner as much, so they're remodeling their homes. So it helps us out. We had a beginning balance of $15,000. Now we're up to $28,500. Fund 40, our capital outlay. Again, revenue is all interest. Expenses, it's primarily a placeholder. That doesn't, if it doesn't get spent, it stays in the fund and rolls over to next year. We had a beginning balance of $19,000. That's still left over from last year's donation that we received. The Foundation Trust Fund, our revenue again is based on interest. We're anticipating 2 scholarships at the end of the year, hopefully, and giving us an ending balance of $9,400. So our average daily attendance at budget projection is 576.40, and we've got the hold harmless which helps us out this year at 576.40. And at the time that we're recording first interim, our enrollment was 572. Cash flow. We are again asked by the county office to submit 2 years of cash flow, and our current year and next year. We're monitoring it closely, and that's included here in the packet. The rows to pay attention to are E and F, E being the net increase decrease, which has our fluctuations of expenses and revenues. The deferrals are noted on February through June on both years. Our reserves are currently sufficient to cover our expenses.
So this is what a lot of districts can't do. They have to go take out a loan to get through this to be able to pay their employees. So your conservative practices over the years, this is where it's coming in handy.
Yes. Education Protection Act, the EPA dollars. We are through the LCFF calculator, it shows that our share of that is $1,070,137, all to be spent on certificated salaries. Every Student Succeeds, or ESSA. The data autofills, and it's basically checking that our expenditures are at or above the state level per student, and our maintenance of effort on that is met. Oops. So our key takeaway points this evening are we're monitoring our declining enrollment, doing what we can to retain our families during this difficult time with the different modes of learning. We've got our decreased funding and deferrals that we're having to work around, but we're happy to have prudent cash management to see us through. And our COVID-19 impact, we're just unsure what that's going to be, what it's going to do to us as we move forward. Any questions?
Hey, while you're thinking of questions, I need to make 2 comments, or because I'd be in the wrong if I didn't. First of all, for many, many weeks now, I've been very critical of Miss Corcoran here for working all weekend, working 7 days a week for the past 10 weeks to get all of this stuff done. And I just given her a shout out publicly because I'm sitting home, watching football or whatever I'm doing, and I know she's over here working. And I just want to tell you you're appreciated.
Thank you.
And then secondly, earlier I should have also recognized Julia, because we probably spent 4 or 5 hours yesterday working a crisis for possible COVID exposure on her Sunday. So this school, this community has some really great people working here that care about kids and the school. So shout out to both those ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, lady.
Thank you both. Any questions, gentlemen? It's going to be an interesting year next year.
It's just an interim report right now. It's just kind of like taking tests, of where we're at. But it has the ability to go a lot of different directions that we're just unknown right now.
Right.
And so we're just going to take the most conservative approach to make sure we're all safe.
Yep.
Financially.
What we need to do.
Yeah.
Okay. This is an action item.
Okay, I'll move we approve the first interim report.
This is Justin Rednall. I'll second.
All right, motion by Mr. Bellis, second by Mr. Rednall. Roll call. Michael Bellis,
Aye.
Mark Hallberg,
Aye.
Justin Rednall,
Aye.
David Slane,
Aye.
and Rob Congeezer, aye. Okay. And, oh, I went past my time. I was supposed to renew the meeting at 2 hours. But we're done now. So future agenda items. Don't forget your Form 700 coming up soon. Oh.
I think they sent us an email on that, or Julia sends it to us, or somebody does.
Yes, they do. And yeah, you have some time on that, but it is coming. Anything else then?
Rob, you're holding a document for me that you signed. If you could drop that off sometime, that'd be great.
Okay.
Picked up the other day.
Yep. And then sounds good. And then so I will be by tomorrow morning also.
Okay, great.
Okay. And so everybody have a wonderful holiday.
You too.
For the thorough analysis today, Kelly, tonight. I really feel as a trustee, I'm informed if I get approached. Not that I get approached regularly, but some of those letters were pretty compelling from medical professionals, but I also remember the other side, like you say, the mental and emotional side toll is taken. So just everybody's efforts on your whole staff. Appreciate that.
You bet. The big thing is we all got to try to pull together the best we can and forget about the politics of it as much as possible. So,
yep.
But thank you.
Well, thank you all,
Right.
and we will be done.
All right, everybody be safe. Have a wonderful holiday.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Goodbye.